a powerful businessman with enough wealth to transform entire cities, finds himself facing a challenge that not even all the money in the world could solve. He, accustomed to controlling everything, decides to hire a humble woman to pretend to be his fiancée. It seems like a perfect plan, doesn't it? But what he didn't expect was that, at a simple dinner, with just one sentence, she would reveal something that could destroy not only his plans, but everything he had built. This story goes beyond appearances and touches on something we've all felt: the need to face hard truths. And believe me, what happens next is as surprising as it is inspiring. Have you ever wondered what you would do if your past came to light at the most crucial moment of your life? Or if someone you thought was just a piece in your game turned out to be the key to something much greater? Get ready to discover how an arrogant businessman and a simple woman teach us lessons about humility, love, and redemption. But be careful. This is not just a story. It's an invitation for you to look at your own life and reflect. Are you valuing what truly matters? Rafael Alvarado was the kind of man who commanded admiration wherever he went. At 35 years old, he masterfully managed a chain of luxury hotels spanning multiple cities. Many looked at him and saw a symbol of success, a wealthy, charismatic businessman impeccably dressed, whose presence lit up boardrooms and gala events. But what truly set Rafael apart was his obsessive dedication to work and his relentless pursuit of self-improvement. His habit of devouring books on strategy, leadership, and self-development was well known, and he believed that each page brought him closer to his grand vision. Despite all the opulence surrounding him, Rafael led a surprisingly reserved life. His routine was meticulously planned, divided between strategic meetings, hotel visits, and moments of introspection in his private library. He seemed like a complete man, but as they say, all that glitters is not gold. Behind the brilliance of his success, there was a void he rarely acknowledged even to himself. After all, what good is success if there's no one special to share it with? Interestingly, Rafael was a confirmed bachelor. Despite his good looks and irresistible charm, he preferred to keep relationships at arm's length. To him, love seemed like an unnecessary distraction, something that took focus away from his greatest passion, work. But as the years went by, a subtle, almost imperceptible question began to arise within him. Was all the effort worth it if the only thing he brought home night after night was the echo of absolute silence? Rafael firmly believed that the key to success lay in absolute control. He thought that as long as he kept his mind focused and his schedule organized, he could achieve anything. But what he didn't know was that life has a peculiar way of challenging us, especially when we think we have everything under control. Sometimes the greatest challenges come from the most unexpected places, from people who cross our paths by chance or fate. And so, without knowing it, his story was about to change forever. Because deep down, no matter how well structured our plans are, life always finds a way to surprise us. It was at this point in his journey that a seemingly ordinary event placed him face to face with something or someone that would shake the very foundations of everything he believed. Rafael Alvarado wasn't always the successful man everyone knew. He was born into a humble family where survival was a daily struggle and resources were scarce. His father, a laborer, and his mother, a seamstress, did their best to put food on the table. Rafael grew up in a modest neighborhood, surrounded by challenges that shaped his resilience. Despite the difficulties, he was a curious boy, full of dreams. His greatest refuge? The books he found in the small community library. There he could travel to imaginary worlds and learn about ideas that seemed impossible in the reality he knew. From an early age, Rafael showed an inclination for creativity. He spent hours drawing scenes that his mind envisioned and imagining how he could transform those ideas into something concrete. It was this love for drawing and architecture that sparked a flame within him, a desire to create and leave his mark on the world. But like many families face, Rafael's dreams met resistance. His parents believed that a more traditional path would be safer, perhaps following in his father's footsteps or finding a stable job. Still, Rafael didn't let himself be discouraged. He realized that he needed to fight for what he believed in. With determination, he balanced studying with small jobs to pay for art and design classes. And when he finally got into architecture school, the challenge didn't end. Many nights were spent awake, balancing projects, exams, and work to support himself. But what set him apart was his passion, and a phrase he often repeated to himself: "Those who believe persist." His efforts began to bear fruit when he graduated with honors, a feat that not only proved his talent, but also silenced those who doubted him. With his diploma in hand, Raphael began a journey where he turned concepts into magnificent structures. His talent quickly gained attention, and he started building not just buildings, but also a future that seemed distant for that humble boy who used to draw on the old kitchen table. However, as we all know, success brings new complexities, and although Raphael had overcome the barriers of his origins, he would soon discover that the past has a curious way of staying with us. After all, no matter how high we rise, our roots never abandon us. It was this connection to his essence that years later would help him face challenges no book or diploma could teach him to resolve. Raphael's success was undeniable, but even the brightest individuals face challenges that demand tough decisions. Alessandro Raso, a renowned businessman with solid principles, became a key player in Raphael's business expansion. With strategic influence in the real estate sector, Raso held the power to open doors to new opportunities. But there was a catch. Alessandro wasn't impressed by figures or empty promises. He valued something Raphael couldn't buy: trust and integrity. It was a delicate dilemma because Raphael knew that the success of this partnership depended on a flawless image, including aspects of his personal life. It was in this context that the idea of presenting a fiancée emerged. Alessandro was known for valuing stability and family, believing these pillars reflected a man's character. Raphael, a confirmed bachelor, realized he needed to act quickly to fill this gap. After all, how could he explain to Alessandro that he had never committed to building a relationship? It was a risk to let something so personal jeopardize such a significant business opportunity. And so began an unexpected and perhaps desperate search for someone who could fulfill this role. The solution seemed simple, but executing it proved more complex. Finding someone willing to play the role of his fiancée for a brief period was a daunting challenge. Raphael, accustomed to handling million-dollar negotiations, now found himself in a situation that no business strategy could solve. He needed someone convincing, someone who inspired trust, and above all, someone who could handle the pressure of dining alongside Alessandro Raso, a man with a piercing gaze that seemed to see through people. This decision brought with it a moral dilemma. Raphael knew he was treading into ethically grey territory. He had never been someone to manipulate circumstances, but he felt that, at that moment, there was no other way. It was one of those situations where life presents tough choices, and he chose to follow the path he believed to be the most effective, even if it was fraught with risks. In his mind, it was a small sacrifice in the name of something greater. And so, with this mix of necessity and uncertainty, Raphael found himself on the brink of an experience that would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. What he didn't know yet was that this search for a pretend fiancée would lead him to an unexpected encounter, one that would put his values, principles, and even his heart to the test. Raphael's search for a pretend fiancée took him to unexpected places, but nothing could have prepared him for meeting Na Martinez. She was a librarian, someone living a simple life almost invisible to those who valued the superficial glitter of the world. Na had a discreet presence, but her personality was magnetic. When Raphael met her, it felt as if time slowed down. There was something in the way she spoke, with authenticity and a wisdom that seemed beyond her years. It was exactly what he needed, someone capable of naturally and truthfully winning Alessandro's trust. Na wasn't easily convinced. When Raphael proposed the arrangement, she looked at him with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. After all, it wasn't every day that a wealthy and influential man showed up with such an unusual offer. For her, it was hard to understand why someone like him, with the world at his fingertips, needed help with something so personal. But Raphael was persistent, explaining the context and, in a way, exposing his vulnerabilities. It wasn't just about business. It was about how small details in life could shape great opportunities. After much discussion, Na agreed to the role, but with conditions. She didn't want to be treated as a puppet or pretend something that went against her values. For Raphael, this attitude was refreshing. He was used to people doing anything to please him, and Na, with her firm posture and sincere words, was a fascinating contrast. Moreover, there was something about her that disarmed him, a simplicity that made him question if life really needed to be as complicated as he had made it. Their first meeting was a mix of preparation and discovery. Raphael had to teach her the details of his life, from personal preferences to habits Alessandro might consider important. Na, on the other hand, brought a different perspective. While Raphael tried to impress her with the grandeur of his achievements, she surprised him with simple but profound reflections on what truly mattered in life. At one point, she asked, "Have you ever read a book just because it seemed interesting, without thinking about what you could gain from it?" That question echoed in Raphael's mind more than he was willing to admit. Unknowingly, Na was already transforming Raphael. She was more than a temporary solution to a business problem. She was a living reminder that the most valuable things in life cannot be bought or planned. And so, with the partnership established, both began a journey that would not only change the course of a negotiation, but also their lives. The dinner with Alessandro Raso was organized with all the care such an important occasion required. Raphael chose the city's most sophisticated restaurant, a place where every detail exuded elegance and exclusivity. He arrived accompanied by Na, who, despite her simplicity, dressed with a natural class that even surprised Raphael. Alessandro, a man with a sharp gaze and a reserved smile, welcomed them with a demeanor that blended cordiality and evaluation. For Raphael, this moment was decisive. Every word and gesture would count in the silent game that was being played. The dinner began with conversations about business, travel, and market strategies. Alessandro seemed satisfied with Raphael's answers, but it was Na who stole the show. When asked how she met Raphael, she responded with a naturalness that put everyone at ease. Alessandro seemed genuinely interested in hearing her story, and Na, with her ability to narrate with authenticity and engagement, became the center of attention. Her way of speaking conveyed a mix of emotion and truth that captivated even the most skeptical. Everything seemed to be going well until an unexpected piece of the past surfaced. During the conversation, Na mentioned, without realizing the impact it would have, that her family had lost the house where she grew up due to an unfair land acquisition. What she didn't know was that the company responsible for that acquisition was the same one managed by Raphael. For a moment, the air at the table grew tense, and Alessandro, always attentive, noticed the unease in Raphael's expression. What should have been a perfect evening was beginning to take a dangerous turn. Raphael tried to maintain his composure, but inside, a whirlwind of emotions hit him. He knew he hadn't personally ordered that action, but that didn't diminish his responsibility. Alessandro, with his unwavering ethical stance, made it clear that the trust he sought in business partners depended on integrity in all areas of life. It was a harsh blow for Raphael, who saw what was at stake. Not just the business deal, but also the budding connection with Na. The dinner ended in uncertainty, leaving Raphael with a pressing decision about how to handle the consequences of that moment. On his way home, the image of Na, disappointed yet composed, lingered in his mind. He knew he had to face the truth, not just to salvage the deal with Alessandro, but to prove to himself that he was more than just a businessman. And so, he began planning how to make things right and regain the trust he had lost. Raphael knew that to fix the damage caused at dinner, he needed to confront the truth with courage. The next morning, he began a thorough investigation into the situation Na had mentioned. It didn't take long to discover that his longtime partner, Victor, had led the acquisition that resulted in the demolition of Na's family home. Raphael was stunned to realize that he had not only blindly trusted Victor, but had also allowed unethical practices to go unnoticed within his company. The revelation was a shock, a crack in his image of absolute control. Determined to fix what he could, Raphael reached out to Na for a meeting, not as the sophisticated businessman he had always been, but as a man who recognized his mistakes. He began by explaining what he had discovered and admitted that, although he hadn't directly ordered the action, he felt responsible for it. Na listened in silence, and Raphael realized that this moment of vulnerability was harder than any high-stakes negotiation. But he knew that trust isn't built with empty words but with actions. To demonstrate his sincerity, Raphael took immediate steps to correct the mistake. He promised to fairly compensate Na's family, offering financial support and exploring ways to restore what was lost. Additionally, he reviewed his company's internal processes, implementing stricter policies to ensure that situations like that would never happen again. It was a process that required time and effort, but Raphael believed he was finally doing what was right. As Raphael worked to correct the past, something unexpected began to happen. Na, despite her initial distrust, started to see sincerity in his actions. For her, witnessing a man of such power admit his mistakes and work to fix them was a gesture that spoke louder than any apology. Slowly, her rigid stance began to soften, though she still maintained some caution. After all, forgiveness is a process that requires more from the heart than the mind. This path of reconciliation was not just about repairing external damage, but also about transforming Raphael internally. He realized that integrity is not an occasional choice but a daily commitment. And as he took steps to regain the trust of Na and Alessandro, a new awareness emerged within him. Raphael was beginning to understand that in the end, life's true successes are not measured in numbers, but in values. As time went by, the relationship between Raphael and Na began to change, subtly but significantly. Initially, Na's distrust was like an impenetrable barrier. However, Raphael's sincere actions and dedication to fixing past mistakes began to pave the way for something new. They started meeting frequently, and these encounters, which were once formal, transformed into moments of genuine connection. Through casual conversations, they discovered they shared a passion for literature, which led them to exchange book recommendations and even read together. Raphael, who had always seen books as tools for success, found a new perspective through Na. She introduced him to stories about emotions, overcoming challenges, and human connections, things he had overlooked in his relentless pursuit of results. In one of these readings, Na suggested a novel about the importance of living in the present. Raphael was so touched by the message that he began reflecting on his own life. For the first time, he questioned whether his obsession with the future had made him forget what truly mattered in the here and now. Small gestures started to reveal deeper feelings as days passed. Raphael, who once hid behind a mask of self-sufficiency, showed vulnerability in Na's presence. Meanwhile, Na, who had always been cautious, allowed herself to trust Raphael, recognizing that he was more than just a successful businessman. In a particularly memorable moment, Raphael took her to one of the hotels he had designed, enthusiastically showing every detail. For Na, this gesture symbolized more than words could express. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. There were doubts, fears, and moments of conflict, but that only made the bond more real and meaningful. Raphael learned that love isn't about control or perfection, but about acceptance and mutual effort. Na, in turn, realized that forgiveness isn't just a gift we give others, but a personal liberation. Together, they began building something as fragile as it was beautiful, mutual trust that gradually turned into love. And so, their relationship blossomed like a garden nurtured with patience and dedication. But life, always full of surprises, seemed to have more in store for this unlikely couple. Because in the end, true love isn't the conclusion of a story, but the beginning of a new chapter filled with promises, challenges, and possibilities. As time went on, Raphael and Na decided it was time to formalize what was already evident. They were completely in love. The wedding was a simple celebration, far from the glamour Raphael was accustomed to, but full of meaning. Surrounded by close friends and family, they exchanged vows in a quiet garden, where every word reflected the journey of learning and overcoming they had traveled together. For Raphael, that moment wasn't just the start of a new phase, but confirmation that true wealth doesn't lie in material possessions, but in the connections we cultivate. Married life brought a peace Raphael had never experienced before. He, who had spent years in a frantic rhythm, began to enjoy simple pleasures like having breakfast with Na or walking in the park. Together, they found a routine that balanced their differences and valued what they shared. Their hobbies became a bridge that united them even more. They read together, discussed moving stories, and even started small design and decorating projects, combining Raphael's ideas with Na's creative perspective. Raphael also underwent a professional transformation. Inspired by his personal journey, he began using his resources and influence to positively impact lives. One of his first projects was creating a fund to support communities affected by actions like those that had harmed Na and her family in the past. He also encouraged more ethical business practices within his company, ensuring that every decision was guided not only by profit, but by values. For him, this was the true legacy he wanted to leave behind. The simplicity of life with Na didn't mean the absence of challenges, but rather a new way of facing them. When difficulties arose, they learned together, using what they had experienced as a foundation to grow even more as a couple. Raphael, who once avoided any kind of vulnerability, now found strength in sharing his concerns with Na. She, in turn, continued to be the calm, wise voice that balanced his intensity. They were, in every sense, partners. And so the man who began his journey in pursuit of material success found his true wealth in the moments he shared with the woman who helped him see life differently. Raphael and Na lived a life marked by simplicity and meaning, proving that, in the end, love and humility have the power to transform even the most resistant hearts. But, as always, life still held lessons and stories for this couple. After all, each day was a new page in a story that never ceased to move. The story of Raphael and Na teaches us that life is full of profound lessons, and often, these lessons come from the most unexpected places. Raphael, who started his journey focused solely on material success, discovered that the greatest triumphs aren't external achievements, but internal transformations. Integrity and the ability to reconcile with past mistakes were crucial for him to rebuild not only his relationships, but also his own worldview. This story reminds us that no matter how successful we are, without solid principles, that success becomes hollow. Furthermore, this story shows the transformative power of love and forgiveness. Na could have held on to resentment, but she chose to see beyond Raphael's mistakes. Her ability to forgive not only paved the way for a meaningful relationship, but also freed herself from an unnecessary burden. It makes us reflect. How often do we let bitterness prevent us from living fully? Maybe it's time to reevaluate our own stories and seek reconciliation, even when it seems difficult. Another essential point is the importance of simplicity. Raphael learned from Na that life doesn't need to be so complicated. He traded business dinners for sincere conversations at the kitchen table and tense meetings for peaceful strolls. This change taught him that happiness often lies in the simplest things, those we overlook in the rush of daily life. It's an invitation for all of us. Are we valuing what truly matters, or are we so preoccupied with grand goals that we forget to live in the present? The story also highlights the strength of ethical choices. Raphael could have ignored past mistakes, but decided to face them and do what was right, even when it meant taking risks. This decision changed not only his trajectory, but also the lives of many people around him. It reminds us that every choice we make has an impact, and that our actions speak louder than our words. If we want a better world, we must start by being better in our own decisions. Finally, this story teaches us that it's never too late to change. Raphael could have continued on the same path, but chose to transform himself. This is a powerful message for all of us. No matter what we've lived through until now, there's always a chance to rewrite our stories, because deep down, life is like a book. Each day is a new page, and we have the power to choose how the story will be told. And now I ask you, what did you learn from this story? Maybe you saw yourself in Raphael and his relentless pursuits, or in Na and her strength during challenging times. Perhaps this story made you reflect on how love, forgiveness, and integrity can transform lives. Whatever your answer, I want to hear from you. Leave your comment, sharing what moved you the most about this story. After all, real stories like this not only inspire us, but also connect us to one another. If you felt that this was the most moving story in the world, share it with someone who also needs to hear this message. Often, a simple story can touch hearts and change perspectives, reminding us that we all have the power to overcome challenges and seek a fuller life. Don't underestimate the impact such a simple gesture can have on someone else's life. Now I challenge you. What will you do differently starting today? Will you seek more integrity in your actions? Will you forgive someone who's been waiting for a second chance? Or perhaps you'll start valuing the simple and meaningful moments in life. Think about it, and then come back here to tell me. Remember, every small decision is a new step toward a life story worth living and sharing. Lastly, if you love moving stories, stories of overcoming challenges and the lessons they teach us, subscribe to the channel right now. That way, you won't miss any inspiring stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you're always the first to know when we post something new. Together, we can create a community that values the power of stories to change lives. Are you ready to write a new chapter in your own story? The answer lies within you. And now, the choice is yours. What will you take away from this story into your own life? Are you ready to see challenges as opportunities for transformation? Can you admit mistakes, ask for forgiveness, and start anew? These are powerful questions that can completely change the course of your journey. Think about it. What small step can you take today to build more authentic relationships and live with greater integrity? Maybe it's time to forgive someone, value life's simple joys, or finally make that tough decision you've been putting off. Remember, each choice is a new page in your story, and you hold the power to make it inspiring. If this story moved you, share in the comments what touched you the most. Let's talk about it, because through shared experiences, we grow together. And don't forget to like this video. Each like helps more people access stories that inspire and transform. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This way, you'll always stay connected with stories like this one that inspire and remind us all that we can overcome life's challenges. Be part of this community that believes in the power of narratives to change lives. So, are you ready to write a new chapter in your own story? The answer is within you.